Hello! How is everybody doing? I know that we're running way over, so I'm going to try to keep this really, really short, and actually would really love to hang out with folks afterwards, so I'll just stay here as well afterwards if anyone wants to chat. This is my first PDF. It most definitely will not be the last. This is the most extraordinary gathering I've ever been to. I feel like when I sit in this hall and hear the speakers speak, that we're talking about the very underpinnings of democracy itself, and what more sacred and important subject is there for all of us as than that. So thank you so much for welcoming me into the community. I'd like to make a small contribution in terms of my thoughts, and then really, after this, I'd love to talk with as many of you as possible and learn as much as I possibly can. As many folks who've spoken here today have said, I am here fundamentally to ask for your help. And it's actually on a topic that I'm more passionate about, I think, than any other topic, which is the power of open data, which may seem mundane to many people, but the power of open data to generate massive, massive social change. And I think that actually, in order for open data to generate social change, it's very important to recognize that it's not just about opening data. You can't just blindly publish data and expect that to do anything, right? Data by itself is useless. I can't feed my family data. I can't pour data on a broken bone and heal it. I can't pour data on a car and make it more energy efficient. Data is only useful if it's applied by innovators to deliver actual benefit to the public. So as we think about open data, we have to think about the deliverable not as the data, but as changes in the life of our citizenry. We have to think about actually work to liberate data is not just about publishing it, but instead to think of the deliverable, as Clay Johnson has said, as an ecosystem of innovation that's vibrant and self-propelled, beautifully chaotic, decentralized, unkillable, that takes that data as fuel and turns it into magic, turns it into real improvements in the lives of our citizens, real improvements in our democracy. So we've been engaged in an experiment since I actually joined the U.S. government about 2.5 years ago. I was actually recruited out of the private sector. I was an entrepreneur in the private sector. And actually when HHS, Department of Health and Human Services, first called me, I was actually mystified because I had no experience in government whatsoever. I said, literally, why are you talking to me? Why do you want me? I don't know anything about government. And they said, actually, that's exactly why we're talking to you, because we're creating this new job called CTO. And it's not the dude or dudette who has to run all IT at HHS. It's someone who's supposed to be our internal change agent to work with the best folks inside and outside government to dream up and then execute at high speed initiatives that can unleash the power of data, tech, and innovation to improve the health of the American people. And one of the initiatives we cooked up was something called the Health Data Initiative. It's an initiative that we then executed at high speed for the next 2.5 years. It's one I continue to champion in my new gig as US CTO. And the whole point of the Health Data Initiative is to catalyze the emergence of an ecosystem of innovation fueled by open data that improves lives, improves health, contributes to economic growth, and creates jobs. And what it basically does is it does a couple things that are obvious and maybe one thing that's actually less obvious. So one, it actually makes brand new data publicly available. That's pretty obvious. It's important to do. Secondly, maybe a little less obviously, turns out that HHS and other agencies had made a whole bunch of health-related data public in the past, but it was useless to developers. It was in PDFs, it was in books, it was in static websites where you could query the website, but you couldn't get the underlying data. So HHS began to take more and more data like that had been public, but turned it into web APIs, into downloadable files, machine-readable data that could be used as fuel by developers to power magical new products, services, programs, insights, et cetera. And then finally, we realized pretty early on that about 95% of innovators and entrepreneurs who could turn the data into magic didn't even know what HHS did. Literally didn't know, let alone the fact that it had data on everything from the health of our communities, the quality of our hospitals, the latest, greatest medical knowledge, products have been recalled about drugs, insurance products, et cetera, and that was trying to give this data away. So it turns out that we actually had to engage in a marketing campaign about the data, in a grassroots outreach and education campaign of meetups, hackathons, codathons, and data paloozas, all of which were very foreign to HHS at the time, but actually become rapidly less foreign as we speak. And we actually paid attention to a very important piece of advice we got from a whole bunch of people, which was, look, every successful ecosystem of innovation that sits on top of data has engaged developers and innovators from the beginning in that process of liberating the data and catalyzing innovation. From the beginning. So we actually started by bringing together a group of about 40 people or so in a room at the Institute of Medicine, amazing tech minds and healthcare minds, put a pile of data on the table and said, look, what do you think? We can make this data available, we can make it machine readable, what do you think, right? They brainstormed over the course of about a day, 20 brilliant ideas, classes of applications and services you could go with this data. We then actually made the data available, made it machine readable. Within 90 days, we hosted a first annual health data palooza, at which these innovators actually brought to bear close to 20 brand new products, services, features they'd built using this data in just 90 days. And that had two very interesting effects. One was it inspired more innovators to understand what our data was all about and build more stuff. Secondly, very importantly, there were actually a fair number of folks at HHS who actually didn't like this data liberación thing that I was talking about, right? Kind of crossed their arms and said, look, I just can't imagine how this will lead to anything that's good. If I release the data in usable form, I can just imagine horribleness happening, misuse, abuse. I cannot imagine awesomeness of any kind. And we made a special point to invite them and gave them front row seats at this June 2010 Health Data Palooza. And they saw the awesomeness that innovators brought to bear. They saw that if you as a government data owner just made your data available and usable, let people know it was there, people would use it to generate all kinds of new services and products and insights that will help improve access to care, health literacy, make care better, make care safer. And they started together. They said, I see. If I make this data available in machine-readable form and let people know it's there, a whole bunch of other people I don't have to pay will build all kinds of incredible stuff that can advance my mission. We said, yes, that's exactly right. So they started making more data available. It became much easier internally to sell this proposition of making the data available, which led to more awesomeness being built, which led to more data being made available, which led to more awesomeness being built, more data liberación, more awesomeness, et cetera, right? Last week, and we're still a little sleep deprived, we just hosted a third annual Health Data Palooza, about 2.5 years into this. 1,400 people gathered in the Washington Convention Center over the course of 2 days to actually see the best of over 240 companies and nonprofits work who had taken open health data and turned it to all kinds of magic that help consumers find the right doctor for them, help people find a clinical trial that could save their life, help communities actually hold their public officials accountable for the state of public health in their community, help doctors and hospitals deliver better care, and so much more. It was a living embodiment of a fundamental belief that we've actually come to hold about Government 2.0, which is called Joy's Law. Joy's Law was named after Bill Joy, the co-founder of Sun Microsystems. He once famously said, no matter who you are, you have to remember that most of the smartest people in the world work for somebody else. Which is, of course, true, right? So you really want to maximize social return on data in the government. Make it free. Liberate it. Make it machine readable, and let all the other smart people in the world take that data and turn it into magic. Magic that can help the American people. And these hundreds and hundreds of new services, products, features, programs, insights, right? Insight machines have been built. Total cost to the American taxpayer? Zero. Bupkis. Nada. Fantastic, right? All we're doing is taking data you've already paid for, made it machine readable, which wasn't that hard because it's in machines now. Made it available, jujitsu, into the public domain, let people know it's there, and then the American innovators and entrepreneurs do the rest. Do the rest. These products and services are already helping tens of millions of Americans all kinds of ways, helping grow the economy and create jobs. So this is a play that we really like. It requires no new legislation. It requires no new regulation. It requires basically very little in the way of money. It just requires embracing the idea of government as a platform. And so a central tenet of what we're actually doing now is running this open data, open innovation play again and again and again. We recently rolled out, US CIO Steve Van Rokel and I, a new digital government strategy that, among other things, the part that makes my heart go pitter-pat with rapid pittering and pattering, is the part that says that the default state of government data going forward in new systems that are architected shall be open and machine readable. There is, which is awesome. And even better than that statement is the fact that OMB is the Office of Management Budget, basically runs the government. So it's important to know who they are, right? I've gotten to know who they are, and I love them, especially when they do stuff like open up the data, right? So basically, they're coming out with very specific new policy in the next 6 months. It says exactly how that's going to work. The agencies are supposed to put together very specific plans to actually make that happen. So it's actually a level of guidance that's very specific, with very specific follow-up steps, which is actually very exciting. Folks are also supposed to reach back into their legacy infrastructure and prioritize 2 web APIs to actually deploy on high-value data, and that's actually supposed to, again, accelerate over time as well. And then on top of that, kind of basic level of cross-government action, we've also launched a new Open Data Initiatives program, which is meant to double down on Health Data Initiative, but also clone it in education, energy, public safety, the nonprofit space, and potentially other spaces as well, where we want to actually turbocharge the web APIing of legacy data beyond actually the minimum standard of the digital government strategy, and also critically engage innovators from the very beginning. From the very beginning, what data should be made available? What investments should be made, if any, right, in terms of the high priority data, in timeliness, granularity, improvement, so on and so forth, right? And showcase the work of these innovators to help inspire more data liberation and more innovation. So we're doubling down on open data, open innovation as a source of improvement in the lives of citizens and a contributor to the economy. So what I'd like to do now, actually, is just talk briefly about, well, what specific benefit in a generalizable way can we expect from open data and open innovation leveraging open data? So I'd like to talk briefly about 3 things. The first, obviously, is new apps and new services. Very exciting, lots of potential there to help folks do everything from find the right healthcare provider to pick the right college for them that provides the biggest bang for their buck, or save on their energy bills through smart shopping, et cetera. But I think that actually, while the apps and services angle is very, very high potential, very, very promising, will produce a lot of value, I actually think it's actually a mistake to think that the value of open data ends there. Very powerful, big source of happy, happy, joy, joy, improvement in American life, contributes to the economy. But I think there's actually another layer of benefit that frequently gets ignored, which is the fundamental benefit of transparency in markets and sectors. So let me actually talk specifically about healthcare for a second. So Medicare just published a 5-year study that looked at the impact of just publishing hospital quality metrics over the course of those 5 years. For many metrics, it was discovered that even just the publication of the metric, with no change in reimbursement policy, generates significant improvements in hospital performance. So for example, in 2006, the rate at which people with a heart attack with a particular profile got the right intervention within 90 minutes of hitting the hospital was 55%. People didn't know that. And actually, without any apps being built, hospitals got very concerned. They got concerned that everyone actually knew that they should be concerned. And they started working energetically to try to fix this. 5 years later, the number is 91%. In 2006, the percentage of pneumonia patients admitted to the hospital who actually were evaluated for and given pneumonia vaccine was 70%. The number in beginning of 2011 was 91%. The percentage of patients who were actually given antibiotics an hour before surgery, which you're always supposed to do, in 2006 was 78%. 5 years later, 97%. Open data, market transparency saves lives. Literally has saved lives. Because it not just powers new apps and services, it actually powers awareness about what's going on in our key institutions, like hospitals, schools, and the government, enables citizenry to hold those folks accountable, enables them to actually understand that people are watching, and enables improvement as a result. It's actually also very important that in addition to publishing this data that helps hold hospitals accountable, that publishing this data helps y'all hold the Medicare program accountable. Medicare over the last couple of years has actually gone on a tear, publishing data like Medicare claims data, dashboards about hospital spending, drug spending, data on quality of various healthcare providers for which Medicare is responsible, ultimately, because it's actually care being delivered to Medicare beneficiaries. One of my proudest professional moments was when Ellen Miller wrote something very nice in a blog post saying, okay, right? One of the bright spots in open government is that HHS is really serious about making detailed data available on the cost and quality of what's happening in Medicare. That's really, really serious stuff. And so it was one of the highlights of my professional life. Thank you, Helen. And there's a lot more where that came from. And, and just to kind of, again, illustrate the power of Joy's Law, applied not just to the billing of apps and services, but applied to market transparency, sector transparency, there's this phenomenal effort that's been happening, driven by the University of Wisconsin, Robert Wood Johnson Foundation over the last 3 years, called County Health Rankings, where public health has historically been basically like Yawn City, okay, for citizenry, right? They just don't care. And the metrics are really abstruse and difficult to understand. Well, University of Wisconsin and Robert Wood Johnson got together and actually decided something brilliant. They took a whole bunch of our data that we were making available, and they crunched it into just a simple number, which is your ranking. Your county's ranking, that's how healthy it is versus other counties in your state, published from first to last. Like the first day they went live, they got like something like 1,000 local news headlines. It was one of the top 5 search terms on Google, right? Public health had never been so sexy, like ever. Like directors of public health started saying, people are actually calling me, asking why we're the least healthy county in Mississippi. And this is fantastic. Why? Because basically, government officials are starting to pay attention. The mayor of Wyandotte County, the least healthy county in Kansas, actually mobilized a whole series of public task forces on issues like nutrition, issues like the quality of various infrastructure, and it was really, really motivated by being called to account by the public because of basically this Robert Wood Johnson University of Wisconsin market transparency play, sector transparency play. So open data cannot just produce products and services, it can also produce transparency in consumable form that drives action, which is really, really phenomenal. And then finally, the last thing, beyond apps and services and beyond sector and market transparency that I think open data is producing as an impact, as a good, is one that I'm still beginning to understand. But actually, it may be one of the most profound impacts of all, which is what I call a people mashup. People talk about data mashups. I think something very profound is happening in the context of this and other efforts, which is a people mashup. So just a quick story. When we first gathered the 40 people or so together to kick off the Health Data Initiative, we actually gathered a group of tech rock stars and healthcare rock stars. What was fascinating to me was that actually not only did the tech and health rock stars, not only did they actually meet for the first time that day, they didn't even know who each other were. They had no idea. We had like Thomas Jeffersons and George Washingtons of healthcare and tech in the room. They didn't even have any consciousness of who each other were. It speaks to this extraordinary fragmentation of expertise happening in American society where, because everyone's specializing so much, people have lost touch with each other. But what happens as a result is that there's huge arbitrage opportunity if you mash up experts in different sectors. So this mashup of tech and healthcare people literally invented the Health Data Initiative. They actually fell in love and made this beautiful baby called Health Data Initiative, which actually neither of them would have come up with on their own. Something else also happened, which was actually a group of public sector innovators and private sector innovators actually met each other too. And that was even more profound because they generally, again, had no idea who each other were and didn't really even necessarily have any frame of reference with which to understand each other. But when they met each other, they were surprised. They learned that they didn't have horns and tails and pitchforks, right? That actually that they had a lot in common, that they were actually trying to do the same things in general. And so that mashup of public sector and private sector folks and the mashup of tech and healthcare folks, that mashup of people joining hands together to try to get something good done, that was magical. That was magical. I had a phenomenal time as an entrepreneur in the private sector. I built companies I was very proud of, I think will actually help many people in the world. But I'll tell you that the most amazing experience I've ever had, has been the last 3 years working for the US federal government. And what I really want to do, and what my team and my colleagues really want to do, is we actually want to get more mashups going of amazing citizen innovators and amazing government innovators to work together to take on our country's biggest problems. And because we're very action-oriented, we don't just like saying highfalutin things and then doing nothing, right? There's a very specific follow-through item on this point, and a very specific ask for every single one of you here in person and watching, and your friends' friends. we've launched a new program, I'm about to say, launching a new program called the Presidential Innovation Fellows Program. We launched about 2 weeks ago, and it's basically a program that aims to bring together the most amazing citizen innovators and the most amazing government innovators to team up in small, agile teams that will actually execute game-changing projects and deliver initial results in 6 months or less. We've picked 5 projects to start. One of them is actually the Open Data Initiatives program that I just talked about, doubling down Health Data Initiative and launching new initiatives like it in energy, education, safety, et cetera. Second is actually called Blue Button for America, which aims to actually enable Americans broadly to get access to their own personal health information. The third is called MyGov, I'll just describe this super briefly, which aims to build a rapid prototype of a single system that allows citizens to actually access information resources across the federal government in a way that's personalized and brings government to their fingertips. A fourth is actually called RFPEZ, that enables the government and startups to actually do business with each other in a much easier way. That enables government to get access to startups and startups get access to the government, which is really a procurement reform process and project. And finally, one's called the 20% campaign that aims to move government development assistance and foreign policy payments overseas from cash to mobile and electronic. So huge potential for getting bigger bang for the taxpayer buck, improving safety, financial inclusion, et cetera. So we are begging you, those of you who care, which is basically everyone here, to apply for this program or to get involved in some capacity. We actually are very, very happy with the results thus far in terms of people applying. We actually just announced it about 2 weeks ago at TechCrunch Disrupt. Within the first 24 hours, 600 people actually registered to apply, which is pretty amazing. Actually, we were asking for something completely unreasonable, which is that you drop everything you're doing and by the middle of July, show up in DC in the middle of a sweltering summer and work like a barking rabid dog for 6 months to try to get stuff done. So completely unreasonable, but 600 people in the first 24 hours said, I'm ready to do that. The total number actually is now north of 1,500, which is pretty amazing. And then even more amazing, even more heartening than that's possible, we actually recognized we were asking for something completely nuts. So we said, look, if you can't leave your family behind, leave your world behind, jump into DC for 6 months full time in like a month, but you want to help and contribute, then sign up to follow one of these 5 projects. Sign up to follow the Open Data Initiatives project. Sign up to help and support it in some way, because we're going to be engaging with a network of folks who want to help, even beyond the fellows. 2,300 innovators have signed up to help. So even if you can't actually drop everything to go be a fellow, if you can lend us some of your time and brain power to follow these projects and actually help advise them, we would absolutely love that. And the success of these projects is going to be a direct function of participation and engagement by folks like you. So please apply, please sign up to be a supporter. It's an amazing chance to make a difference. Please keep doing all the stuff that you're doing. I'm actually sitting here stunned by what I've heard all day, because it just gives me more faith in our country and democracy to know that folks like you who care so deeply are doing such extraordinary work. And hopefully this Presidential Innovation Fellows Program is another opportunity to make democracy more personal for you, to have you engage in a very direct way, advance the ball in a meaningful way for America, powered fundamentally by the people. So thank you so much again for having me over. God bless you. God bless personal democracy, and God bless America. Thank you very much.